Good morning, students. Today we are going to study one more type of non-probability sampling, that is consecutive sampling. So, what exactly consecutive sampling is? So, it is a technique where samples are picked at the age of researcher, more likely convenience sampling. So, we have already seen in last class what is convenience sampling. Whatever population easily available, we will be doing uh, a survey on it, and that will be the population that will our sample. So what change here is, so there is a slight variation that here researchers select a sample or group of people, conducts research over a period. Okay, over a period means he will select a period for this month, this month, this month, this year, this year, this year, what changes have happened, 15 days, after 15 days. This over a period he will be doing a research on it. He collects the results and then moves to another sample. Okay, again he will select another group of people. So this sampling techniques gives the researcher a chance to work with multiple samples to fine-tune his or her research work to collect vital research insights. So this is what consecutive sampling, same way as a convenience, but the thing is, it will be over a period of time. Okay, result will be collected, and then it will be moved to the another sample. So in most of sampling techniques in research, a researcher will finally infer the study by concluding that the experiment and the data analysis will either accept the null hypothesis or disapprove it and accept the alternative explanation. That is what we come to know after the going with the consecutive sampling. So there will be an hypothesis. So either there will be a null hypothesis or a disprove, we can say, or there is an alternative explanation also. That findings will be generated. A null hypothesis means you know that it's a statistical theory in which no significant difference exists between the set of variables involved in the research or experiment. So we don't find any difference between whatever variables we have selected, and the things goes differentiated. So let's see. Okay. So in the mathematical terms, the original or default statement is often represented by H naught. Okay, that you know that last year you have studied this last semester. H naught, that is null hypothesis. So if the null hypothesis is accepted, then the researcher will not make any changes in the opinions or the action because there is no relation existing. So the null hypothesis is indirect or implicit. Next, an alternative hypothesis is the opposite of the null hypothesis. Okay, so in this statistical hypothesis, there is a relationship between the two variables involved in the study or research. The first one is H naught, second one is H1. One is there is a null and there is a relation. So if H1 is proved, then there is a relation between the two variables which we are studying. An example, we can say the increase in the salary will increase the demand for luxurious product. Okay, whether it is related or not. So totally depends on the type of salary you are getting and what is the hike. Okay. So an alternative explanation is accepted when null hypothesis is rejected. So an alternative hypothesis is the testing is direct and explicit. So H1 denotes an alternative theory. The first one, the what we have created is H naught. That is the hypothesis because it's a null hypothesis. So how it is null? Because there is no relation between the both the variables. There is no not at all a relation, then it will become a null. If there is a relation between the variables which we are studying or we are doing a research which we have included, so then it will become the relation relative. That is nothing but the H1. So that is having a alternative hypothesis. So however, in consecutive sampling, there is a third option also available. So what is that? Here a researcher can accept the null hypothesis, if not the null hypothesis. Okay. So he can accept. Okay. Then it's alternative hypothesis also. Both he can go for. If both things are not getting accepted, either null hypothesis nor the alternative hypothesis, so then is applicable, then a researcher can select another pool of sample and conduct a research or the experiment once again before finally making a research decision. For example, I have taken a study or a group of population. I will be studying on that, creating both the hypothesis H1 and alternative H0 and H1 hypothesis. So in that, I found that there is not at all even null hypothesis can be accepted or not the alternative hypothesis accepted. So then what he can do is, then he can switch to another population, another sample. Okay, there he can again conduct a research before conclusion or taking any decision. So then he can go for the experiment. This is the third option which is available in the consecutive sampling. So example, if you see, one of the most common example of consecutive sampling is when companies or brands stop people in mall or crowded areas and hand them promotional leaflets to purchase a luxury car. Okay, giving it. So you know this distribution marketing or promotional campaign happens. That is an example. In this example, the people walking in the mall are samples, and let us consider them as a representative of the population. So what researcher does here is, the researcher hands these people an advertisement or a promotional leaflet. So a few of them agree to stay back and respond to the questions asked by the promotion executive. Okay, so it will happen. Not every is going to answer it. So then what we can consider him or her as a researcher. So the responses are collected and then analyzed, but there is no conclusive result that people would want to buy that car based on the feature described in the leaflet. Correct? After doing all things. So what can be done? Now the promotion executive now asks questions to another group of people. Okay, he will again distribute the leaflet to another group. Then again to that group, he will ask for the questions. So who analyze the details of the car and its features and show keen interest in buying the luxury car. So here we have two type of population. First one, that is not at all responding. Okay, that is also a group. Then if you're not succeeding there, then we go to the another population or another group. Then we will explain the details. Then we ask the questions. Then they show some keen interest in buying that particular luxury car. So this group of people has provided conclusive results for purchasing the vehicle. So this is an example of consecutive sampling. So however, there is a downside to this sampling method. So you cannot consider the sampling to be representative of the entire population because it's an very easily you are getting it. So in this example, not all people who have taken this leaflet were interested in buying the car. That is going to happen, obviously. So here is where sampling bias comes into the picture. So to overcome this bias, consecutive sampling should be used in tandem with the probability sampling. So we have seen with the convenience sampling also, if you want to reduce the bias, so we should go with the probability sampling with that. Okay. So just as a pilot study, then we can go for this type of studies. Okay, where population is huge. But to avoid this bias, we should always go with the probability sampling. Now, what are the advantages of consecutive sampling? So in this technique, the researcher has many options when it comes to sampling size and sampling schedule. Okay, the sample size can vary from a few to few hundred. So that's the kind of range of sample size we are talking about here. Okay, so in this sampling technique, sampling schedule is completely dependent on the nature of the research the researcher is conducting. So if a researcher is unable to obtain conclusive result with one sample, or she can depend on the second sample and so on for drawing conclusive result. So we came to know that. So it's in one third option which is available that we have studied. One is the H0 hypothesis, then H1 hypothesis. So both things are not met, then we can go and study the another group of people. That is the advantage side of the consecutive sampling. So in consecutive sampling, researcher can fine-tune his or her research, okay, due to its representative nature. Minor changes can be done, adjustment can be done, okay. So it can be made right at the beginning of the research itself to avoid the considering research bias. Then they can join up with the probability sampling. So very little effort is needed from the researchers' ends to carry out the research. Okay, so this technique is not time consuming and doesn't require an extensive workforce also, because easily the sample size is available with you. So this is regarding consecutive sampling. If you have any doubt, you can ask.